This is Stu Strauss, the Woodsman, and you're listening to Inspirado Projecto.
Here's your fun fact. Cliff Clavin makes a cameo in Empire. Cheers and Toy Story actor John Ratzenberger has a brief appearance in Empire Strikes Back. He's the one who tells Han not to go out into the cold to look for Luke. Then he sits down for a beer with Norm. How about that? Stay tuned to Inspirado Projecto for more fun facts.
Awesome.
Hello.
I'm very happy to see you connected. Now, something that would be good to do, and I always do this right before the interviews, is to turn on the do not disturb thing on the phone, and then also just like making it silent. Because I've noticed in the past, sometimes it'll kick off the, it'll stop the broadcast. I don't know why that is, but once I figured that out, it no longer is an issue.
All right.
So I just had to plant that little seed in your ear.
All right, let me go on my settings and check real quick. All right, it's all on silent.
Awesome, dude. Okay, so so the listener who's listening right now, I found this young man, or actually he discovered me through a mutual TikTok guy who goes by the name Metatron, and he's just got all these different profiles these days. You never know. I can kind of sense his vibe. Like even when he makes a new profile, I'm like, I wonder if that's Metatron. And sure enough, I go to his page and it's him again.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how people can keep making so many accounts and stay like on top of all those things and always creating content. It's like, it blows my mind. So you were led to me through him. What was it something that you saw in a comment section that I did, or did he suggest that you follow me, or how did you come across
he
Frank?
tagged me in one of your videos originally, I think it was, and then I started getting, my ears started ringing as soon as I looked at your face. It was like a remembering thing. I didn't know who you were. Like I didn't know who you were to my soul or anything at that point. I was just like, okay, that face looks familiar, you know. So I messaged you or whatever, and then this starts going kind of deep. I believe there's an inner voice, and I can be in contact with that inner voice if I silent my mind and just shut it up, you know, and just listen instead of thinking I already know the answer. And when I did that, things were revealed to me. Like, I don't know if you want to get into this right now, but the past life things, you know?
Dude, yeah, absolutely. All this stuff fascinates me.
So I've done this has happened with multiple people before, not just you. Like I've seen familiar faces and I'm like, I wonder, since I already have like preconceived knowledge about myself, if somebody else might have shared a past life with me, you know? And the name George Martin popped into my head.
Wow.
Like instantly. And then I went to look up his face, and then I started like freaking out a little bit because you guys look very similar and all that, you know? And this is always how it comes about. Like I have buddies who, like IRL, who I shared this with, and we plan on making music and forming bands and shit. But before I get into that, I need to say, what? I'm gonna stay here. Excuse me.
That's right.
Yep. Okay, where I was going is that I have a couple remembrances of my past lives, and one of those lives goes by the title of John Lennon. And you probably remember this time. You remember the Grand Conjunction 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, right about then I started getting really into spirituality and stuff. And I was already into it before that. I'd taken psychedelics a couple times with my buddies and all that. And I started meditating on the couch one day, and then just out of nowhere, his face just showed up, and I was like, okay, that face looks familiar. I saw the circle glasses and shit, you know. And then I went to watch the Imagine video, and then fucking my ears started going crazy, dude. And this is where it really all started. I went down every rabbit hole imaginable, like that you can possibly think of. Like, none of the answers are on the outside, and that's what I had to learn pretty much. You understand?
Right.
Even though
it's listening to
I
your
can see
intuition.
John Lennon on the outside, the answer still has to come from within, because the inside doesn't exist without the out, and vice versa.
So this was like one of the first times that you had a feeling of a connection to, being able to, would you say this is the first time that you sort of were awakened to
Oh
the
yeah,
spirituality
I
aspect?
I had multiple moments before where I like, so I believe I've had a couple soulmate connections that I've ran into, and we've had shared experiences where our bodies like
Whoa.
start shaking and our ears start ringing and shit. And that's where it originally started. I had this girl that I'd been friends with since I was little, and we lived 400 miles apart. So one night, our ears started ringing like crazy, like I was trying to tear my hair out my fucking head and stuff, because it wouldn't stop for like an hour. And then eventually, I ended up just texting her, and we popped up on Snapchat at the same time. Like we called each other at the same time, and it ended up not. She ended up getting very scared of it, and it ended up teaching me a lot of lessons about attachment, relationships, all that stuff. And where I was going with that is shit. Hold on, I need to slow my conversation down a little bit.
Well, I think it's definitely something to pay attention to when something like that happens. I mean, these are
Yeah,
things
it's
that we
happened.
can't ignore, and when they happen and we keep seeing examples of these things happening, and we pay attention to it, and then in fact when we realize that, oh wow, this manifested reality that is happening now because I specifically imagined, some days ago or years ago or whatever, going, oh, wouldn't that be interesting if this happened? And all of a sudden you find yourself stepping into that
Yeah.
thing and going, I am living that moment that I had that premonition of long ago. And when you start, I noticed just in my own spirituality and connection to the universe, is
Mm-hmm.
the more that I pay attention to those things, and the more that I look back on my archives of all the situations where that was totally true, I go, okay, you know what? Now I can just completely intentionally do it now. Now it's not just some kind of accident of like, oh, wouldn't that be interesting if this happened? Now I know for sure that when I say this thing, it will come to play at just the right time when it needs to, and
Yes.
all the events will be aligned. And it's amazing when you find yourself really.
Yeah, you're always exactly where you need to be each
It's
moment.
well, and it's so interesting because especially when, so the more that I find myself strengthening that relationship and with the universe, and the more I'm finding myself coming across folks like yourself, these highly evolved spiritual beings who are just like, whoa, they're opening their minds to the
Yeah.
the epiphanies and the revelations. And so that time when you saw John Lennon's face in your mind while you're meditating, would you, and you're saying you have the ringing of the ears and the body shakes. Was this the first time that you experienced that aspect, where it's like,
Uh,
yes, it's like a bell, like a resounding yes, like, this is something to pay attention to.
that was one of the very first prominent times. It had happened previously, but I had no lead to go off of, so it kind of just left me wandering late nights at bed. What was that?
Whoa, whoa. Okay, so that very first, if you can remember some of the earliest times, I would love to know and investigate
Well,
what
it all
might have
really
been.
started. Well, the thing is, I believe as children, we have all this knowledge. And then as we get programmed, as we go through society and school and all that, we lose touch with things like imaginary friends, all that
Yes.
stuff, our connection to our soul, all that. Because we get told it's not real. We get made to feel all these different ways that are not truly us inside. And uh, I did have those. I almost lost those things. Like I forgot about them until I met this. I have this buddy. I'm just gonna call him. I'm gonna call him Z
Okay.
for this podcast. And uh, we we met at a friend's birthday party, like a mutual friend, and it all really started off from there. We started chilling. He played guitar and stuff, and he was really good at it. So he got me to pick it up, and next thing you know, we're chilling, and I'm playing guitar with my thumb on my lap because I don't know how to hold it yet, you know? And it really just started from there. And then a couple months later, you get into the summertime, and we're taking shrooms for the first time together. And oh boy, this is where it all really fucking started, man, right here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we took them, both of us together. We had a trip set of our buddy. He was also, another part of our group, another part of our soulmates, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even like using that term, to be honest with you, but it's what I'm saying is we went on the trip or whatever. We went in the backyard. We were just chilling for a while, and then it got really intense. Like the ground started breathing and stuff, you know.
Ooh.
Like we could see auras on stuff. We were seeing images overlaid on the vision that we already have project. Like we can see the outside world, but there's an overlaying image effect over it. You know what I'm saying? Like I was seeing like seaweed and stuff. It was weird.
Wow. So you were
And
able to
then
kind of see in between, like what, other dimensions possibly, or
yeah,
the other,
it was like I was seeing through the veil for the first time.
incredible.
Yeah,
It's
my third
interesting.
eye was going crazy. It felt electric, but
Well, it's interesting because, like, a lot of times, these philosophy books, they're, people are like, oh, Socrates or whatever. They go through the list of all these great philosophers, Alan Watts, all that stuff. And yet, so many times it's hard for people to actually recognize a modern day, just for the lack of a better word, philosopher, or one who's enlightened or really
Mhm.
tuned into trying to figure out the mechanics of their relationship to the unknown.
To the
Um,
all.
yeah. And it's like, it's interesting because when those of us who are interested in these types of subjects find each other, I notice the synchronicities flowing so much faster because there's
Yeah.
a celebration on both parts of it. There's, this person is excited about them. I'm excited about them. They're happy to share theirs with me. I'm happy to share mine with them. I'm happy to hear theirs. They're happy to hear mine, and it just keeps going and is building and
Yeah.
building. And it feels so good when that happens. And I think that's the optimal time to start putting out those intentions, for those sort of reality manifestations. Now, to get back to something that you said, you went down all kinds of rabbit holes. When you open up that door and you go, okay, this is something to be paid attention to. What were some of the first things that you started? Did you go to videos? Did you go, okay, what books talk about this? How do I learn
It
more
took a
about
minute
this?
to get there.
Mhm.
I'd like to continue on where the trip was leaving off.
Oh, yes, 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 please,
Yeah.
yes.
um, after that, we didn't want to be in the house anymore because we were trying to cover our heads in blankets. Like we were literally gripping on for dear life because we took like 3+ grams each for our first time, and like eventually we had to go on a walk because it was getting too hot inside.
Wow.
And there was a lot of traffic. There was yard sales going on that day. There was lawnmowers, the train going by, and all that stuff. Like it was. No, there wasn't a train. We ended up going to the train station. It ended up freaking me out because I could like hear the vibrations ringing off the train tracks, even though there was no train there still.
Wow.
When we got back on our way back from the walk, which took about a good 30 minutes around a couple of blocks, we went through this nature trail, and that's when we kind of forgot about our buddy Austin who was walking with us, and me and Zephyr literally had a full like 10-minute conversation in our heads. Like we were talking in our heads on the shrooms or whatever.
Ooh.
Once we got to the end of that trail or whatever, we looked at each other as if we had the conversation with our mouths open the whole time, and we didn't say a word.
Whoa.
Yeah. And after that, we kind of just we had to walk back up through the neighbor's backyard to get into his side of the fence or whatever. But it kind of felt like an end of the movie scene kind of thing. Like, oh, that just happened. Now what do I do? Like, I just broke the basis of what I thought reality was with my buddy on shrooms. You know?
Yeah. You can't help but question what really is, under situations like that. It really helps kind of melt away social constructs and all the stuff that
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
are.
believe humans are naturally telepathic, and
Hmm.
I believe it's called telepathy though. Like,
Yes.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bashar talks about that, empathy, and that's why empathy is such an important thing, and it is something to be careful of because those of us who are empathic, we tend to want to go there, and be there in that with that person's space while they're recounting a story or going through a thing, and man, there are a lot of just sad empaths out there because of that. They don't know how to like
Oh
go,
yes,
okay,
if you don't learn how to transmute energy and only take in information and not like hold your own, you have to know how to project. You have to know how to receive and at the same time make a shield in that process between the receiving and the process and all that. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
Like it's your auric field, pretty much like a barrier you form with your own, like whatever you want to put into it. I mean, I believe unconditional love is the most powerful force in the universe. Not the universe, that's just another thing. I believe it's the most powerful thing in the all that we exist in. This soup or
hmm
whatever, this infinite soup. And I believe it's what holds it all together. Because think about it, it's a love with no conditions.
right.
As humans, we struggle to do it without what, like, we have so many conditions on our love here, and we would never expect something to have no conditions. And when you get down to it, it's like everything is made out of a structured vibration, which scientists call them atoms or whatever. But I believe we really have no clue, like what anything really is. Like they
Right.
show us science, and I believe it's only to fill our brains half in. So
Right.
we accept part of the truth, but not the full truth, and it keeps us in this like rabbit race. But
Well, and it's interesting too, because everything gets infinitely smaller and everything gets infinitely larger. And so, the
mhm.
more that like Alan Watts talks about how you could build the most powerful microscope, but you're never actually going to get to the end. You're never going to be able to get to the end of it, because
Yeah,
there's always going to be something more that the universe has given you to look for, to search for. It's like a funny little Easter egg. It's like, aha, now that you've built that telescope, or now that you've built that microscope, now you can see this. Well, wait, there's more.
yeah.
And same thing with the telescopes. It's just like, no matter how far you see out there, there's always going to be more for the universe that will give us to investigate and to
Mhm.
dive deeper into. So now I want to ask you about this with some of these people you went on the trip with. Were any of these guys, you had mentioned to me on Instagram about how in addition to you getting the vibes that I'm George Martin, reincarnated, so to speak, or I was him in a past life, or as Nostradamus says, it's all now, right? All the past and
Mhm.
future, and it's like all happening right now.
Yeah.
So that's something really interesting to wrap our brains around. However, just using words like past lives and stuff like that, it's
Yeah, there
it's
really is
just a
no past
placeholder,
life. It's
right?
an alternate life. It's all happening simultaneously or layered on top of each other. So that we may have abilities to tap into those past lives. And the thing is, once you get into it, you realize, though, okay, let's go back to our past lives, for example, one we shared with the Beatles or whatever,
Hmm.
for example. That is really cool. And in this world that we're in right now, it shows up as almost unbelievable because there's these famous people. But realistically, that means nothing in the grand scheme of infiniteness. Like, you could have created this whole game with those characters there just to have the experience you're having now, you know?
Wow.
And that's a really eye-opening thing. Like, kind of leaves you just breathing for a second. Like, what am I doing here right now? you know?
Yeah, well, and that idea that we're co-creating the existence together, and so it's like
Hmm.
certain parts of certain reflections of ourselves arrive at certain times, at the perfect
Hmm.
times, when we need to
Yeah,
look at it
like
and
I
go,
said, I don't believe. So you can't see your own face without a mirror. So I believe that the inside doesn't exist without the outside, and vice versa. Like, you've
hmm.
heard, as above, so below, as within, so without. And then it's as below, so above, as without, so within. And you can reverse it like each way. And that's because I believe for you to even be on the phone with me right now, we have to be at a reflective vibe, to even exist in each other's realities. Yeah.
Right, because otherwise, in a sense, I would know I would just not exist to you, and you would just not exist to
Yeah,
me, even
fear
though
has to exist for love to exist, so there can be the choice.
it's really intriguing when we can trace back all the things of like, oh, I wish I would like to know about this someday, or wow, that'd be neat to know someday. And then sure enough, the universe, presents us with
This is the life of knowing. I always found myself sitting when I was little. Like, it's when I started to fade out of my spiritual like abilities when I was little. I always just, why am I here right now? What is so important about being on Earth right now? I mean, I was trying to break through all the illusions, what people had told me, like what humanity is doing here, that we're really just trying to do the best we can. Like, I believe I shed out of that real early because how much, like, it's like polarization, the opposite of emotions. Like, everybody's stuck in this fearful, angry state and hateful state, and that does not seem natural at all. And I never saw it as that. So that's really what led me here at a base level, because it's like, this does not even feel right. Nobody loves each other. We're not united as a like collective mass, and it's really sad.
so the vibe that you got of where you felt that familiarity with John Lennon. Have you looked through like any of his biographies, any of that stuff, and seen maybe he's had some specific quotes that you have yourself, or found
Oh,
yourself saying?
me and him are very similar. I view it as like he's me. If I, he's I view it as he's you could have been him if you were put in those same situations with the same, like, before you come here, you chose exactly how your body was going to look, I believe. You designed every facet of the instant moment you were there, like the family, like the situations you were going to have in the family, the relationships. I believe it was all known to a certain extent. And even if it wasn't, I believe there was a point before you incarnated where you already watched the whole thing play out just so you'd have that preconceived, intuition. But then again, that goes back to everything's happening now and all happening now anyways, so there is no before or after. But it kind of helps us as humans in a linear aspect keep track of shit.
So you were saying that you had also, you also got that ringing in your ears with other people that you had come across where you go, whoa, this
Mm-hmm.
person, is this
Yeah.
aspect of the Beatles. This person is that aspect of the Beatles.
Yes, I have found all. I have all four members. We got John, Paul, Ringo, and George all up in here. And the guy I'm closest with right now, Z, he's George in his past life. I'm friends with Kelvin too. I'll just say his name because we're not gonna find names. It,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. But he, we're not on speaking terms right now. He's very spiritual, but we got into a bit of an argument, and it's almost a test of fate right now. It's kind of weird, but somebody ended up stealing money from my buddy Z's house, and then we ended up thinking it was him, and that's kind of where we're stuck right now. But yeah, it we'll get over it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all good. It's just then there's Ringo in this life. His name's Austin or whatever. He's going through it right now. He's at the beginning of his awakening, pretty much. Like, I believe when I first talked to him about it, it kind of it triggered something in him, and now he's on like a landslide. He's going through a lot of ego deaths, and I can see it.
Wow.
Yeah. I
Wow.
believe one day we'll all come together and be able to just be buds. But right now, me and Z, we're very sound in trusting each other and who we know. We know our names on the other side, all that stuff. We're archangels.
What are your names on the other side?
You know Metatron, right?
Yeah.
Metatron is my angelic twin brother. My name is Sandalphon.
Say that again.
Sandalphon.
Sandalphon. And he's your brother?
Angelic twin brother. Like,
Angelic twin brother.
It's Alpha Omega energies. It's he's the head, I'm the feet of that angel. But with it's this, they're two different entities, but the same. It's like they're representations of the God energy, of source energy. We all are, but it's how much do you choose to be that? How much do you choose to be the reflection of that source and that unconditional love? And yeah, Zephyr, I believe you're even an angel. I believe there's a lot of angels on this planet. When it comes down to it, an angel really just is a vibration, a color. So, for example, you could hold two you can hold a red shirt up next to a rose, for example. They could look like the same color red, but they're really not. And you know why? As much as they look the exact color, it's a different material, it's a different structure, it's a different vibration. So at its core, I believe a color really is the difference in everything. Like, we separate each other through race and humanity, for example, right? So there could be two people with the same skin tone of white, but they're different beings in their essence, in their vibration. So it's not the same color. Do you pick up what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting too because each sound has a color. I've been thinking a lot about this, like putting on a show where the notes that are coming out of what you're playing, those colors are then played simultaneously with that. So you're actually getting that full sensory experience of those colors that are coming through there. And then plus you get into that idea of like the frequency aspect where you see like where they'll put sand on that plate and they'll go, and they'll vibrate it at a certain thing and it makes a certain pattern. And that's fascinating to me too, which I think would be great to kind of like.
Here's a mind bender, I think. So find any like color you can find in your room right now. Tell me what color it is, and it could be on any object.
Blue.
All right. For you to see blue, that wall or whatever it is reflecting back to you every color except the color blue. For blue to exist in your reality.
That is
So
fantastic to think about that.
you know how I said a minute ago that there could be two, to your human eyes, it could look the same color blue, but one's mouthwash and one's like a carpet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be the same color as we would. That's how we always say the same color, but it's a different vibe at its core of what it is, different material. So I take that as the same as beings. Like we might have the same skin tone, but you're a completely different color than I am, as in you're a completely different vibe. You're a completely unique being in this source. There's nobody exactly like you experiencing the now moment like you are right now. And that's why we're all divine puzzle pieces in my mind. Each one of us.
Well, and I think that's why it's so like so I learned improvisation. I've had a few improv groups, and I think once I got into improv and I realized that whole yes and aspect and the idea of all for one and one for all, and
Mhm.
everyone is there and for each other. It's an ensemble experience. Once I had that, it opened up so many channels of insight to me in seeing that symbolic representation in everything. And so I've always,
Mhm.
anytime I've had friends, my mission is like a total non-competitive thing. It's a
Mhm.
completely like collaborative. Like, okay, how can I help enhance your passions, your talents? How do we enhance
Yeah,
that? And if this person is doing it to this for this person, and everybody in that group is doing that, I mean, whoa, they're all
that's
honoring
the
each
most
other's
powerful
puzzle
thing
pieces.
humanity can do is unite and show each other love and compassion and reciprocate equality in every aspect of the relationship. You know, that would
Well,
like to be reciprocated in. And
reciprocation, yes, big time. Reciprocation is the biggest aspect. And I've been reading this Mr. Rogers book, and I realized that all the stuff that I how I treat other humans is came from me watching Mr. Rogers. And I realized, wow, so many people don't understand the golden rule because they many of them just were not raised on Mr. Rogers. Many people did not at an early age understand what that was like, kindness and treating each other with respect and going, oh wow, that's a neat idea. Let's see how we can serve that idea. And
Mhm.
um, so I think that's why we might see some things kind of slipping with people's minds because they don't know that it doesn't have to be competition all the time. They don't
Yeah,
realize that you know they
I
don't have
believe
to have a
that's
lack of.
ingrained in a very early age. I have to be better than you because it gets ingrained as a survival skill. I believe you
Right.
have to have something better than the other person, and that's why I believe I'm gonna go to the pharmaceutical industry. Like I believe personally, there is already the cure for everything humanity needs and desires for like our medical needs, but they need leverage, they need money, they need to have some way to keep people who might be able to become in contact with their souls and actually change the very fabric of the reality at bay through a
Mm-hmm.
system of like inequality, and that is the money system, I believe. And they're always going to constantly be giving us fake cures, fake. And it goes really deep, man. Like I don't believe the pharmaceutical industry like is there for our benefit at all. I believe it's a slave system, to be honest with you. Same with the renting system, like all of it. We're really
Yes.
just slaves, new modern slavery, I believe.
Yeah, I can see those aspects, and what's so great is knowing the knowledge that we have that knowledge of your reality is your reality, my reality is my reality. And even though all those things that might seem like dun dun dun, oh, here comes the empire, dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun, it's like, even though some of that stuff is like, oh no, here comes Darth Vader and the gang, it's like, wait a second, like we by us being that powerful being in our own specific reality, it's funny how something can totally exist for so many other people who are willing to agree to that reality, and it just will not touch me at all. And I look
Yeah.
around and I go, how is this possible that, like, and then I realized, whoa, it was because I chose to create, to carve my own path and to follow my intuition and to listen to my higher mind, and I am not letting myself watch, I'm not watching the news. I'm not paying attention to politics. I'm not looking at any of that stuff because I look at it and I go, wait a second,
That's what
how do I
manifests your
feel?
reality when you take that in as your only source of information.
Right, right. And then you don't know what thoughts are your own.
Hmm. It's a very scary thing. Like, well, it's not too scary when you're in the midst of it because you have no clue that you're that gone. Like,
Right.
you ever heard the Pink Floyd song "Comfortably Numb"?
Yes.
That song, I believe, perfectly like represents in its like emotion, like the masses of humanity, what it's talking about. Like, We are also just we get we like there's McDonald's for like sake. You know what I'm saying? Like we are so comfortable. We can just chow down, relax, watch TV. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to put any effort in, but for ourselves, and that's where a lot of people get stuck because they don't see the benefits in helping other people. They only see the benefits in helping themselves, you know, in the grand aspect, because they're really, oh, I'm just gonna die one day anyways, so what does it all matter?
Yeah, it's really quite like I saw a video of a lady stealing this woman's shopping cart from her, and then lady's just like she's got her trunk open and she's taking this other lady's stuff out of her shopping cart as she's walking out of the building, and this lady's just putting all of her stuff into her trunk, just stealing it right there. And I'm thinking, holy cow, something like if we were to trace back that behavior, like who taught this person that it was okay to do that? Who, like
Yeah.
someone raised that person to go, yeah, go ahead and take what you need, take what you want and do what you want, and who cares? And, like
Mm-hmm.
screw everybody else. Like you just wonder, like, whoa, like why was that a preferable teaching mechanism? I guess when people are so deep in their own self-loathing, they can't see the silver behind the clouds. They can't
Mm-hmm.
they can't see that, and it's
If you
nuts.
can't see something within yourself, it's damn near impossible to see it in somebody else. So um, that goes for like I'll use family members for like an example. Like my father, he works very hard, but at the same time, he lost that part of him that really likes to, I don't know, be around other people, share conversations, be in a
Hmm.
loving vibe. Because it's almost, we get this over masculinization type thing going on, and we feel weak to show our emotions. We feel inferior. We feel like we can get used and taken advantage of because of how many times we really do see it happen in just the real world. Like people just doing other people so wrong, you know? And I guess a lot of people get stuck in that gray area where it's so mistrusting because we don't trust our own feelings anymore. We don't trust that we could sense a good person even if they came up and slapped us in the face, you know?
Yeah, it's I remember as a kid growing up going, I do not want to be an adult, and I do not want to be an adult. And I remember how much
Mm-hmm.
I cried when I turned 18, and how much I cried when I was 20, and so on and so forth, and just like going, oh my God, like I'm getting farther and farther away from being a kid and this innocence and this enjoyment, and I don't want to become this bitter, crusty, like whatever adults. When I look at adults, I go, that's what that represents to me. Someone who's bitter with the world. They're just like there's this like I don't know what's the word I'm thinking of, just like pettiness,
Yeah.
people treating each other, and that whole idea of like, well, you gotta hustle, you gotta climb up that mountain, and it's like, geez, man, oh, you
Why do
gotta
we need to
step
do
over,
that? We're
right?
naturally born on this planet. We're made out of the very materials that this planet consists of, and we have to pay to live on it. Like, what?
It is such a funny, crazy thought, and I'm glad that spirits like yourself are waking up to these ideas and are holding on to, you're able to see through the social constructs. I think a lot of people during the quarantine, they're able to see through a lot of social constructs because after all, it took something like that to shut down the businesses.
Yeah,
Like you're not
COVID
just
was
going
a
to have a
divine orchestration, I believe.
well, and the crazy thing is too is that people looked at this and they go, wait a second, all right, hold on. So this business that told me that it was impossible for me to work remotely, now the business is trying to figure out a way to make me work remotely because this is what it has to do. It has
Yeah,
to find out something new.
and
And so
that
it was
feeds
interesting.
that feeds
Well,
the metaverse. We can get into that, but
oh yeah, go on. Yeah.
no, keep talking. I was just bringing
Well,
that up.
I mean, I was just thinking like, so as those like social constructs were breaking away and people had to just sit there with themselves and they had to decide, okay, do I enjoy my own company or not? What is
Hmm.
my own company? What thoughts are my own? Or am I just going to turn on the news and wait for it to tell me what to do next? Or am I going to, maybe
Yeah.
it's the people who are so used to being out and just like losing themselves in just in being in crowds and all those distractions and paying money for $25 craft beers and et cetera, all the way down the line. It's like now all
Hmm.
of a sudden all that social construct goes, it shuts down, and no celebrity was any better than anybody else. No sports person, no, nobody was any better than anybody else. Put everybody on the same field, and then it was like, who really cares, you know,
Yeah.
what you're going to look like. People were just walking around in their pajamas all the time, you know? It was so interesting. So interesting.
I believe it's causing it. COVID is. It's just. I wouldn't even like calling it COVID. That's what they want you to call it. I believe it was gonna happen regardless, and it's part of the whole plan. Like it's part of the good plan. It had to happen this way. There had to be the separation in consciousness, so we could leave that plane of consciousness. Because there's people who aren't gonna believe in it, man.
No,
But at the same
no.
time, they're coming with us. They cannot. The only version that isn't coming with us is the version of them that is stuck in that low vibe. That person,
Yes.
that soul is still going to be there. You know.
It's kind well,
Nobody goes without the other. Like we're all, I believe we're all one. So, and it's not even when you say we're all one, you can get trapped in, oh, we're so similar. We're also so very different. But it's, I don't know. Um, it can kind of scare you to think you're all one when you first open your mind to that aspect, because you're like, I don't want to be that person. I'm not the pedophiles. I'm not the rapists. I'm not the murderers. But at a core level, you wouldn't be able to have the choice not to be that if you didn't know what it was.
right, right. You need that for that contrast to know what you
Mm-hmm.
do not want, what you do prefer, and what does enlighten you and what does make you feel good in moment to moment. Because, I mean, honest to God, everyone is racing to satisfaction. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
really said out there, but when people say, "Oh, I can't wait to retire," what does that mean? Oh, I can finally relax. I can finally be
Yeah,
satisfied. I can finally be happy.
that's the
Or when
worst mentality.
right, and then people are like waiting to be happy. Wait, what? After this happens, after that happens, and then after this and after that and all those other things happen, then I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Then I can be happy. Well, here's an interesting idea. What can you do right now to try to be happy in this moment now? Because just imagine that when you're like, what if you were to bring that future happiness into this moment right now and
Yeah,
find a way, and then watch your reality change before your very eyes, because then it's going to reflect those aspects that are going to
yeah. Like I ask
yeah.
myself, like as many moments as I can the other day, what would love do now? And I take that in for myself. I'm like, what would I? Not something that would make me comfortable, not something that would make me non-productive in my own eyes. Something that would make me like, yeah, you can't lie to yourself, and that's what I've realized. Something that I would thoroughly enjoy that would benefit me in the day, and that's what I believe when you ask yourself that question, and then you can in turn use it for other people. But I believe that's where it starts. You got to make your own day better before you can make others.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's interesting because this goes back. You were saying something about selfishness, and it's
Mhm.
interesting because that in itself, someone could look at that and go, "That's selfishness," because you're choosing to actually care about your very own vibration in this moment in time. And how dare you do that? Because you're not over here helping me out with my misery. Well,
Yeah,
hold on a second. What about you standing over there with your misery? Why don't you try to do something to figure out a way to not be miserable, find a way to enjoy yourself, and so that way we can share in the idea of trying to so we can both share in that frequency of someone who is
hmm
just doing their best at shining as bright as they can and enjoying each moment to moment. And
yes,
because it's like it's such a backwards way. Abraham Hicks, she always talks about the vortex, and she's like, if you're going to manifest stuff, you can't manifest from that low vibration of like, oh gosh, I
hmm
really want abundance. Well, it's like, okay, hold on, change your attitude. You have to step into happiness and excitement first before you try
yeah.
to
Your
manifest. That's
vibe
the language,
really attracts your vibe attracts your thoughts pretty much. I believe. Like there's a whole scale of okay. You can be at, let's say you're at grief, for example. There's the bottom barrel of grief, and then there's the top half of grief where you can in change go to a different emotion once you get out of
Yes.
grief. And I believe where was I going? That was very deep. That had a very deep meaning. I
Well, you
lost it a
can
little bit.
climb up that scale, right, of those emotions where
Yeah,
it's like,
your thoughts can get stuck in the middle, and that's where a lot of people can't pull themselves out of in certain emotions, especially like hate and anger. It gets harbored in their lower energy centers. Like you can feel it. I've had parts in my life where I've been very down, very sad, and it feels like I'm carrying something, like I'm being pulled down by something, and it's hard to get up in the morning. My will to live is just, and okay, your solar plexus is soul, our soul. Okay, the sun.
ooh,
Yeah, we are the living sun in human form, I believe. We are spreading light just as the sun does. I use bees as an example. Like, uh, they're the perfect example of what to do. They spread love, like through their existence. They pollinate all the things. They don't ask for anything in return.
Right.
But at the same time, they're self-sustainable. They like, and then it gets into the Schumann resonance. You ever heard of that?
Yes.
I believe you've heard the quote, the bees, their little fat bodies, like their wings are too small, all that. I
Right. Like
believe
there's
they
no way
create
that
their,
they could actually, if you were to take that as like a human who had that kind of
yeah,
portliness about them, there's no way they could fly. Right. You're like, what? How's this impossibility happening?
yeah. I believe they vibrate at a love vibration, and that allows them to, in a sense, levitate using the Schumann resonance because it's a crazy concept when you look at it, but it's really, we're all crazy. That's the whole thing. Nothing is crazy to me anymore. I believe everybody on this planet, if they don't do some internal realization and do some like meditation, some internal work, we all have mental illness. Each and every single one of us.
Yes.
And that's the fight right there, saying you don't have a mental illness, because how would you, it's just complete ignorance. It's complete saying you already know the answer.
Well, and it's the funny thing. I like to say often that we each have our own delusions. Every
Mm-hmm.
every single person has their own, their system that's set up in their brain, the way to do things. This is the way to do it. That's how you do it. And then, and then you go, okay, well, who's that person influenced by? And then who are those people influenced by? Who are those people? And it's like, going back and back, but it's like each person has their own way of doing what they're doing, and they're trying to,
Mm-hmm.
just trying to find some comfort, trying to find some satisfaction, trying to, just a lot of cases, people are still running so far away from whatever trauma is going on, and yet they still keep talking about their trauma all the time. It's like, how can you ever expect to just like abracadabra and finally like just vanish it out of there and not
Mm-hmm.
hold on to that when you're constantly telling people about your trauma? That's something
You
that's
have to go back through you literally have to sit and feel it and allow it to leave your body or transmute into a higher emotion, because it is not going anywhere until you look it dead in the face. Because I use this for example. This gets down into the nitty gritty, but your own worst enemy is the man in the mirror. In every aspect, you see people get like identified with schizophrenia, all these things, and they see dark entities, all that. It, when it comes down to it, sometimes it seems like these people really have no control over what's happening to them. But at a core level, I do believe in most cases that they do, and they are creating these versions of themselves that end up tormenting them from the outside pretty much, because even if they're not creating them, they're in a vibe of terror and straight fear, and it's attracting all these things, and you're really just creating your own experience. It's not, there's no good or bad in this. It's all really just, what do you want to attract? And good or bad is all just perception in my view. It's, I don't, you know what I'm saying?
hmm
So
well, it's interesting because one person's good is another person's bad. One person's favorite
yeah,
political opinion is someone else's hatred for that opinion. One person's favorite sports team is another person's, oh, how dare you like that football team, whatever.
yeah.
But each side, every single side has all the reasons why that these are the best ideas, and why all those ideas over there are the worst ideas, and those people over there are the terrible people. But then those people are using the exact same things that these people are holding as the most important things, and those people over there are going, well, those things are ridiculous that you're doing. This is the most important thing.
Hmm.
It's like, well,
That's
okay,
why I
it's so
believe
silly.
unconditional love is where it just rests, because it's a love with no conditions. You can look at any human, if you get that instilled within yourself, and you can see a version of you, like completely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're just reflections of you, and we're all creating this together. And at a certain point, I believe it's starting to speed up a little recently. I mean, most of us who are in tune with this stuff can feel the planet and its energy shifting right now.
Yes,
It's
yes.
it's getting very intense. Even my own family members are starting to become aware of these things. Like they're having ear ringing incidents. Like it's just how it happens. And I believe a majority, like people are gonna start having some crazy dreams that they cannot wake up the next morning and be like, oh, that I can just discount that, because they're gonna be personal things. They're gonna be things that piece apart their traumas and their dreams. Their souls are gonna start feeding them information through that other side that they pretty much slept on literally for so long, literally sleeping on the dream world. You can get, like, Nikola Tesla is a perfect example. He tapped into that, and he was getting information and creating his inventions from that other side, you know?
Oh yes. Oh gosh, I love knowing that there's a parallel Earth. There's a version of Earth that exists side by side this right now, where Nikola Tesla really was awarded and appreciated, and all of his ideas
Hmm.
got out there in the world, and he was totally not squashed or looked at as crazy. Just like that
Thing is,
version
though.
where he's thriving, and we're all thriving thanks to that. And
Hmm.
oh, I love that. I love that idea of knowing that currently
He
exists.
Nikola Tesla knew, though. He knew it wasn't time, and that's the whole thing. He knew he had to be there at the time he was, as sad as it is, to literally just be a pillar of light during that time period, even though he knew it wasn't necessarily going to be anytime soon in the way we view human time or whatever that is, years, all that. And there really is just aliens walking around, man. I don't think the word really exists. I believe like there's advanced souls and it's all information pretty much. It's all memory, and some have more memories than others, and that's what we call older souls. More experience, more like a more completion within oneself, and it allows you to experience a higher reality or a lower reality.
What other kinds of past lives do you associate with that you remember?
Oh boy. Well, I know another one, but it's kind of out there, man. I mean, somebody would. I already, I already told you about the John Lennon thing, all right?
Yeah.
But I believe at one point John Lennon figured out a past life of his own, and cue the drums, Benjamin Franklin.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that started showing up to me because how I see my face when I look at it in the mirror, I'm like, I look like him, John. Obviously, I look like myself, but I see it like a combination in my face of the two, and it's always when I first only found out about John Lennon, it was I was sitting there like, something ain't adding up. There's something I did between the crossing over of lives into this one, where I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like there was something else that happened in my evolution for me to be a certain way. You know?
And
And
so you would associate with Benjamin Franklin, his
I believe he's a lifetime where I was learning how to be. I say I. He's you too. Like you're Benjamin Franklin, you're John Lennon, but it's who do you resonate more with in this reflective thing we got
right.
going on? And at a core level, you really like Benjamin Franklin and John Lennon. They are the Archangel Sandalphon, and that's the archangel that you go to the highest level I can go to in my plane of existence, and that's where I resonate up there with archangels. And
Now, what have you discovered in your researches with Sandalphon?
I've been here many, many times, and me and you helped create this place. We all created this place. It's how aware of it are that you created all of this, every little facet, every little the room you're in right now. You created it in some aspect, like not in some aspect, like the whole thing. And it's because you are me and I am you. And I believe there's one source consciousness on this planet, and it's experiencing itself through all of us. You know.
Yes.
So one day we can have that original thought, and that's like the reverse Big Bang. I believe the Big Bang was the separation from unconditional love. It created fear, so we then could experience what we were not, because we got kind of sick of just playing the same old, same old. Oh, I know this. Oh, I know that. We got tired of just knowing everything, so we wanted to experience what we weren't, and here we are right now having this conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like Dolores Cannon through the QHHT stuff, she realizes that a lot of these, there's that idea of that soul contract of these before you choose you choose who your parents are, you choose how you're going to die, you choose the way in which you're going to die, you choose, all of these things, and you got your soul people. And I finally came to the realization the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, because all throughout this time I was like just thinking like, okay, how do I know who is the people that I made a soul contract with? And finally, what came to me was, as I was talking with this younger couple when I was out at this bar with the band,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I had such a familiarity with them. I felt that I was they were so familiar to me, and I must have known them in past lives. And in that moment I realized, aha, this vibe is the vibe that our bodiless in the soul contract, this is that that thing, that button that's pushed that goes, yep, these are the people that you made a soul contract with. If you get that
Mm-hmm.
vibe where you feel that, just like you're saying, the telepathy, the conversations are flowing fast, the ideas are like ooh ooh ooh, and you're saying stuff that they were just thinking about, or they were saying stuff that you were just thinking about, or you're about to say.
Yeah, you're
And
tapping
you're
into that source connection, and then you're experiencing it with another being, and it's quite beautiful when you get deeper into it.
oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Because those are the people you want to hang on to. Those are the people who, in addition to giving you a safe zone to like really, really, when you're in a room full of fringe dwellers, explorers, and dreamers who just love going, ooh, let's try this. Ooh, that sounds so absurd. Let's do it. It's like, rather than looking at it going, that's not practical, or chances are that won't happen, or I don't think so. It's like that's operating from that sort of like that sort of passive mindset of someone just kind of sitting on the couch critiquing things. But it's the people who are out there exploring, testing out new waters. You're going, all right, let's see how far we can stretch this thing, man. And
Mm-hmm.
I really wish Nikolai Tesla had a group of buddies like that he could have been able to, people who really totally got him, who understood
Mm-hmm.
what he was
You know who got
about.
him? His pet bird.
His
He
pet
loved
bird.
that. Yeah, he had a pet bird. I don't remember what it was. It was either a dove, or I don't know what it was. But he had like a literal, like, intimate relationship, not like, a sexual relationship, but it was very loving. It was like he knew that thing had more intelligence behind it than just a bird. What we would like. The thing is, I believe it's all just labels. Like, the second you're born, you're told a bird is a bird when it's not a bird. You can make up your own meaning to what it is in that moment. Like, you ever just be walking outside and it's almost like you have a thought and then a bird will tweet and then it like rings right through your head and it's like, oh, I just got a confirmation from like a bird
Yes.
spirit. Yeah,
Yes.
that's why you can't really call it a bird. I believe they're each their own being, even if it's the same species. There's two blue jays. They're the same color. This goes back to the color thing. They're different vibes in their being. They're different souls. Even though they come from the same source, they're different fractals of that source.
Well, and what's interesting too is when you start researching like what those birds mean, what that symbolic representation is to all the
Mm-hmm.
natives, who've grown up on the land and had such a, like, I frequently think about the fact that the sky, fire, ocean, trees, nature, animals, all that was the television. That was the
Mm-hmm.
motion picture entertainment for people growing up. And no wonder they had such a closeness to the earth and to their connection to the clouds and all that stuff, and go, oh, when this type of bird, does this at this particular time, that's an omen that this happens. And it's like, it's incredible when you really, it's like, those are the people that I listen to, the
Mm-hmm.
shaman, the spiritualists, the past life regressionists, the channelers. Like, those are the people who are doing the best that they can to try to form a relationship with all that is. And so it's like, let me listen to those people rather than the limited brained, humans who are
Mm-hmm.
denying, in the existence of these things. And then they wait until they make some sort of invention that then it shows that those things exist. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, actually those things are real. Yeah, no, those things do exist. It's like, well,
Yes.
what's going on? What stopped you from? It's like you had to invent the thing in order for that to show you that this was a reliable piece of information.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's many. Okay, we're on a podcast right now, and there's a lot deeper conversations I could have with you if I was like just talking to you, and I plan on having those conversations. Like but one of the things I want to do is show you like the Akashic records, all that stuff. I want to teach you how to tap into that stuff. Well,
Dude.
I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just helping you remember. I'm assisting you, and like, it really is as simple as like closing your eyes right now and just trying to make a conglomerate, like, I don't know, idea of like if there is a source of like information, memories, all that, how can I tap into it? How can I make it feasible to my mind? So the Akashic Records, for example, it's like a library of information. And we can do this right now, actually, because
Yeah, let's do it. Because then
all right.
the person who's listening, they'll, you're teaching them.
Hi, this is Steve Peters, and you're listening to Inspirado Projecto.
It's It's a face palm, a balm of calm, like a napalm bomb. It's a face palm, crumbly malm of loamy alms. And how soon do you think you to do it again? It's a face palm, here it come, alms playing Brahms on prom. And how soon do you think you to do it again? Have the horns from Guam to the cable comes. Are the grom rom diatoms glom in their moms? It's a face palm, the book of psalms and rhymes and rhymes. And how soon do you think you'll do it again?